Is my mic hot? There we go. All right, guys. So my name is Stefano POISL. I'm the Director of Commercial Architecture at Goree Architects. We have been in business for almost 60 years now, since 1963. We do, sorry, is this better? We do master plan communities, high-rise, industrial, distribution, retail, hospitality, just a little bit of everything right now, it seems. So with that said, Heath, you want to?
Yeah, good morning, thank you. For those of you who haven't had the pleasure to meet, my name's Heath Melton. Currently, I'm our president for the Phoenix region. You might have heard we bought a little piece of land out in Phoenix, about 37,000 acres, so slightly bigger than the Woodlands. But here in our market, what we like to say is we develop premier master plan communities and commercial properties from Wall Street to Waikiki. So we have the Seaport District in New York, downtown Columbia, Maryland. Obviously, our 3 master plan communities here in the Houston market. Hopefully, you guys all know them. The Woodlands, Bridgeland, and the Woodlands Hills. We have Summerlin, Las Vegas, Ward Village in Waikiki, Hawaii, and then, of course, our new project, Phoenix. So very excited to be here. Thank you for having us.
Danny Signorelli, CEO of the Signorelli Company, mixed-use master plan developers. We've been around for 27 years, and we're pretty excited to be here to talk to you guys today.
Good morning. Elizabeth Gilbert with Clark Condon Associates. I'm the managing principal there. We've been in business in the Houston area for 37 years and have had the pleasure to work on great projects such as Bridgeland and the Woodlands Hills. We're also working on Veranda, Grand Central Park, Woodson's Reserve, and then kind of to round that out, we're working on City Place, aka Springwoods Village.
Good morning. I'm DUANE HECKMANN with Land Advisors. We are a real estate brokerage company headquartered in Phoenix. If you looked at you saw something, Jimmy Jenkins asked me what an MSA is on my thing. I have no idea what that stands for, so please don't ask me what that is. Kirk LaGuardia, he's standing right back there in the back. He and I are the team here in Houston. We've both been raw land brokers here in town for 38 years each. We kind of specialize usually in little larger land parcels around town.
Good morning, my name is Uri Man. I'm Executive Vice President of Land Tejas and CEO of the Lagoon Development Company. Land Tejas is a master plan community developer working exclusively in Houston. We've actually been the largest developer in the market for the last 3 years in terms of number of lots developed and sold, typically now developing over 3,000 lots. And the Lagoon Development Company owns the crystal clear lagoons that are inside of the master plan communities and benefits from the income streams that are generated from that amenity.
All right, thank you guys. So with that said, first question we're gonna do is land prices. Cost of land and where are big tracts being purchased and why? Why are they not being purchased? Maybe DUANE, if you can start us off.
If you're a seller, land prices are too low. If you're a buyer, land prices are too high. That's the bottom line. We have seen, like I said, Kirk and I have both been doing this for 38 years in Houston. We have never, ever seen the land market like it is right now. It's as hot as it can possibly be, pretty much across all disciplines. And when we say disciplines, we usually confine that to multifamily, industrial, office, retail, and single family. And there's a lot of money chasing deals right now, and home builders are building at record levels, which means that record amounts of land are getting taken down or getting sold. It is no question it's a seller's market right now, and I don't know what the future looks like, but I do know we've never seen anything like this right now, and we've had bubbles before in the land business, and historically, when you look back, as old a guy as I am, it's usually somehow tied to there's way too much money in the market being given to people who cannot pay it back. And I mean, money's too loose. That's usually on a mortgage side of the equation for a homeowner. We don't see that in the market right now. I refinanced my home. It was like getting a colonoscopy trying to get something done. It was horrible. So we know they're not giving money away.
So a myth is, does Houston have an unlimited amount of land supply?
No, we don't. When you look at it on a map, you look at it on Google Earth or something like that, it looks like it. And when you start tying down some things, a lot of big properties, the owner isn't a seller. Every seller is an owner, every owner's not a seller. And there's a lot of big tracts where it's in a family, we're still farming it, or whatever the case may be, that narrows it down. And then secondly, can I drain it? Or can it be drained relatively economically? And if that answer is no, there's less. Or does the owner have a somewhat realistic price expectation? And if that answer is no, it just keeps narrowing down, narrowing down, narrowing down. So if you find a piece of land with a willing seller with a relatively realistic pricing expectation and you can drain it, it's going to be an active property for sure.
It's more and more difficult to find deals that are viable, that's for sure. So we have projects in all 9 counties that make up the greater Houston market. Our bread and butter is 500-600 acre parcels. Like Dwayne said, it's difficult to find tracts that have a seller that today doesn't think it's an oil well, and so realistic prices. The reality is there is a ceiling, regardless of what you see. I mean, there's plenty of dumb deals out there that, regardless of how creative you are with Excel, it's not going to make money unless the world keeps doing this, and that is what creates some problems at the end of the day. But the reality is, you know what? The suburbs are booming. People are pushing out, and so chasing those little farm tracts and creating entitlements to create new supply is badly needed, and that's where a lot of us are playing.
Now, the other thing is that every generation that goes by, we were looking at a piece of land that we looked at over 10 years ago, and the owner has since then passed it on to his 5 children. So now the big piece of land is owned 20% by each person. And with these large-scale projects, in order to have any sort of viable development, you need a bigger piece of land so you can do the drainage. And now you have to deal with 5 different owners instead of the person that owned it previously. So as time goes by, the properties are becoming less and less viable for development as they get split up into smaller parcels. So that makes a challenge. Time is not on our side.
And I'm gonna open the door for Danny Signorelli here. I forgot one constraint. Is it in a region where the elected officials and or the government is pro-development, or at least willing to talk to somebody? Just so, how many people in here work for a city or county? Okay.
Thank you.
Now we can go.
Yeah, good. Good job. No, so before Danny, you could take off. So part of the question was government policies, certain counties, and in the past 18 to 24 months, a lot of engineering has changed. You know, how do developers see that, and are you avoiding certain areas?
Well, we're all going to go to where the market is, right? And so from a political perspective, if you've got areas that take 3, 4, 5 years to put your widget on the ground to sell it, then you're going to go path of least resistance, right? You're going to go to the place that's pro-business, place that understands development. So if you've been paying attention at all, everybody's running out of Harris County because we have a county judge currently that absolutely could give a darn about public safety, cares little about crime whatsoever. We've had more cops killed in the last 6 months than in the last 5 years, from what I understand. We all sell a product to people that, what do they want? They want great schools, they want to be safe, they want nice amenities, they want quality of life experiences. All of that's pretty logical. But elected officials like Lena Hidalgo, which if y'all are Harris County folks, then you need to get out and vote and try to change that. All of our projects, we're pushing outside of that realm because there's just better politics in other areas. Then you have places like Brazoria County where their politics feel like as long as lots are really big, then no Democrats will come to town. Which is incredibly short-sighted. It's just unbelievable that an elected official, what can you define oppression, please? They won't say that. We just want 80-foot lots. Well, how about, where do you want your school teacher to live? Where do you want your postman to live? Where do you want all of the backbone of America that makes $60,000, $80,000 a year to live? If everybody's got to be in a $500,000 house, you're creating a mecca for multifamily, which lower discretion. We could talk about this. Let's have a whole chapter on this thing. But
we have a whole biz now for it, so we'll start that one.
Politics matters, so you got to pay attention.
All right. So what's the attraction when it comes to large-scale master plan communities that you guys look for?
Yeah, I think I'll kind of jump in on that one. For us at Howard Hughes, obviously you can see what we've done in the Woodlands, 48 plus years. Bridgeland, we're in our 15th year. We probably have at least another 10 to 15 years. But we look for large scale properties, and our threshold or low water mark might be a little bit different than most. We kind of target anything 2,000 acres and above. And for us, it's that long-term value creation proposition, and how do we get outsized returns on our investments. And so we're not just focused on IRR. As we look at all of the asset classes that we develop in-house, we're not just selling lots to home builders. We do our own multifamily, we do our own office, retail, hospitality, you name it. We use the land sales to really create those dollars to invest into our vertical assets, and then we focus on long-term net operating income. And so that's where we differentiate a little bit. But when we talk about that large-scale master plan community, we're looking on not just from location, what's the 3 L's of real estate, but also those different asset classes that we can bring to the market, and then how can we control supply quality to meet demand, and how does that kind of save us during a downturn in the market? We talk about it all the time in our industry. There's a flight to quality during a downturn. You'll see that in master plan communities. We have resiliency in our values, resiliency in our job growth and population growth. If I was to show you a graph, we don't have a screen here today, but if you look at the Woodlands from day one back to like 1976, I think that's when I was born. But if you look back there, it's been long-term job growth, population growth, and if we look at our price appreciation, it follows that same trend. So those are the things that we focus on, and you'll see that in all of our communities, even the new one that we bought out in the Phoenix market.
Thank you. Elizabeth, you want to touch base a little bit on what are the attractions that come to large master plan communities and quality of life?
So, when you break it down, what everyone's really trying to sell here, it's about lifestyle. So people really want to have amenities and things that improve their life, especially right now after everything that we've been through, and people are able to work from home a lot more, don't have to get into the car quite as much and drive so far. So they really want amenities that are going to serve them in their lifestyle. And I think a big part of that is convenience, especially when you're looking at some of the retail and some of the things that they want surrounding them.
Right. And from a development perspective, what are the principal factors that you guys are looking at when selecting new community sites at this time, and what are major killers of sites? Maybe Danny, if you want to start with that one, and then we'll push it up to Heath and Yuri.
Sure. Touching a little bit, going back to politics, you're looking for a place that's pro-growth. So, in surrounding the greater Houston market, there's obviously massive population growth. That's a reason to invest. But good real estate where you can get it entitled and deliver a product that's going to touch on all these things that the panels already kind of brought up matters. So, for instance, we have a 4,700 acre project, Austin Point, which will be our newest master plan community in Fort Bend County. That property, the very last leg of the Grand Parkway and Fort Bend Parkway intersect on our land. Which, going back to what Heath was saying, this project is special because it'll be, one, it's 4,700 acres. So this is a 20-year, 25-year project, maybe 30. Like Howard Hughes, we develop all these asset classes. And so it's critical for us when we're looking at a piece of land to acquire that it's got all of these different elements to feed our multifamily, our retail, our office, our medical, our land guys, our home building. And so in chasing places like this, what are deal killers? Well, we generally know the politics before we go somewhere. You won't find us looking for land in Harris County, not today. Deal killers are environmental. Deal killers are drainage, like Dwayne said earlier. Deal killers are the rest of it really, it's not about deal killers, it's about velocity, right? So you're trying to gauge. It takes us a year to put product on the ground. Unlike home building, you can build a house. You used to be able to build a house in 90 days. Today, build times are more like 180. But in developing neighborhoods and communities, it's acquire a piece of land, it's a couple of years to entitle it, get hydrology, get everything figured out, and then it's another year to put lots on the ground. So you're trying to gauge how much supply you can put on the ground that can be absorbed in a 12-month period. And so I won't call it a deal killer, but when you're watching inflation and cost and all these things that are really running away from us right now, you have to anticipate a bit of a slowdown, and that's going to shrink the sizes of phases and projects.
Just for a textbook case for what Danny just talked about, 362 and 290, that's where the Buc-ee's is. That's the Waller County, Harris County line. Kirk and I have worked on 3 or 4 deals on the west side of 362 because it's in Waller County. That is the determining factor. To sit there and go, I can be in Waller County or I can be in Harris County, have to go through Harris County flood control. I have no idea how long it's going to take me to get a drainage permit. Why would I do that brain damage? I'm in the same school district, same street, just on the other side of the road. It's pretty simple.
Yeah, and from our side, we're looking for parcels of land that are at least 1,000 acres. We want to have 3,000 homes or more in our communities. One of the reasons is the amenity that we have, the crystal clear lagoon, which we feel gives us an advantage, really kind of an unfair advantage, requires that number of homes because to maintain the lagoon, it's pretty expensive, and we need about 3,000 homes paying their HOA fees in order to cover the deficit. So one of the things that we look for in order to make this amenity viable is proximity to and views from a major highway, because we want people driving by to see the crystal clear water, and that will attract more homeowners, more home buyers. To give you an idea, our projects that have the crystal lagoons, we're getting about 10 times more foot traffic to the builders' models compared to those projects without the crystal lagoon. So people are very curious. They want to come out and see the amenity. They get the opportunity to experience the amenity. If they come into a builder, they can get a free pass to come enjoy the crystal clear water. If they buy a home, from the day they go to contract, not from the day they close, but from the day they go to contract, they get to go to the beach club, they get to go enjoy the amenity. So we try to leverage that, and that's also even central in looking at parcels that we're trying to buy, because we want to see, hey, where are we going to put this amenity? Is it going to be visible from the highway? Are we going to be able to create a large-scale mixed-use entertainment district around it that has viability, commercial uses, et cetera? So.
All right, so the MPCs are well recognized for parks and open spaces. What are the new trends in park amenities and other open space amenities in the new established MPCs? I think, Elizabeth, if you want to kind of take us off here.
Thank you. So Uri just mentioned one of them, that is water. And how can you make water very interesting? People aren't looking for just, square pools anymore, so leisure component. Also, spray grounds are pretty big and what you can do with that. But other than that, the number one thing across the country, no matter where you are, is really trails and open space. That's what people are looking for. They want to get out, especially, like I said, now, after we've seen how important the outdoors are during a pandemic. So trails, and then the other thing that I think is come, a long way lately is the playground experience. It's not just the typical, structure sitting in the middle of wood chips anymore. It's really about the play experience and what can that do for you. I think another approach to this, I think these developers have different approaches on this, is do you kind of go in and do a large amenity and really put all your, not your eggs in that basket, but a lot of your dollars into that, your amenity dollars, or do you kind of spread them out around? So I think you're seeing a lot of approaches on that, and the developers are handling that differently, and I really just think that's about the market and who they're trying to draw.
Yeah, and you mentioned trails, and we actually are really focused on making sure that there's pedestrian-oriented traffic inside of our community. So we came up with this concept. We call it the Green Bolt Trail, which is a 12-foot sidewalk. That's all it is. It's a 12-foot sidewalk that meanders through the community, and it allows somebody to take their golf cart or their electric bike or their scooter and travel through the community without competing with the automobile in a safer environment. So now you can take your golf cart. By the way, we have no golf courses in any of our projects, but we have hundreds and thousands of golf carts now, and these things are tricked out. They look pretty amazing. They're driving through our communities to go get a margarita at the Lagoon. And it really becomes a resort lifestyle type of experience because you feel like you're on vacation inside of the master plan communities.
So are you also the CEO of Golf Carts of America?
Yeah, I'm working on that.
So as you mentioned, the golf cart trails, I think a lot of the master plan communities now, there's a third vehicle. And are you guys also accommodating for that one in your communities?
Yeah, I'll just kind of talk a little bit more generalities. When we plan our communities, we like to focus on anywhere from 20 to 25%, and sometimes up to 30% of our land is dedicated to open space, and that can come in many different forms and fashions. But we want to make sure that we give our residents the opportunity to connect with nature. And I think people have read The Nature Effect or The Nature Fix, and it's that forest bathing. And during the pandemic, we saw more people out enjoying the outdoors than ever before. The community I live in, I didn't even know 80% of the people that were walking around the lake because I've never seen them before. But they're out there enjoying that. So if you come out to Bridgeland, come to the Woodlands, you'll see a lot of that and how we implement it. And we start to focus on pedestrian connectivity first and vehicular traffic second. So how do we get people across 11,500 acre master plan community to all those different points of interest, whether that's the urban environment, a future town center, our village centers, and then all of our amenities. So these 12-foot paths that we're talking about that Yuri mentioned in a little bit more of an urban context, we do that throughout our entire community. And we size our pedestrian connectivity, our trail system, based off our roadway systems. So if you look at our major thoroughfares, they're gonna be upwards of 12 feet. If you look at our collector roads, those are gonna be 8 to 10 feet. In-track residential, those are 5 and 6 feet, all at the point of getting our residents to those points of interest in the safest, most manageable way where they don't have to connect with traffic or engage with traffic.
And I would add to that how important that is. I'm from Houston, I've grown up here. What you don't see really in this area anymore is kids riding their bikes to school, and that is something that you absolutely see in Bridgeland and the Woodlands and a lot of these places with these expansive pathway systems.
And then as developers, are you guys partnering with other organizations such as HOAs, cities, and counties to develop regional recreational facilities?
Can you define partnering?
Basically, you pay for everything and they allow you to build it?
That's about right.
Yeah.
Pretty much how it happens.
Kind
give you
of
permission.
a forced partnership?
There's, all of us work very closely with local government and officials to solve for amenities. And I'm sure everybody's got stories on this stuff, but like our Valley Ranch project, I-69 and Grand Parkway, years ago, we took a lead to sit down with the county to bring a better Little League baseball experience, because the Little League fields that they had at the parks, which you could play ball on, was a high risk of ankle injuries and whatever, right? It's more like a goat ranch. So we carved out a piece of property like Heath. A significant amount of our land is amenities. It's about creating a civic draw. It's about creating things that are going to keep your project relevant 50 years from now. And so we contributed land for the county to build Little League baseball fields, and because the land was donated for free, they were able to have a much bigger budget to build a pretty special deal. We've done the same thing with football stadiums. We've done some of the public-private partnerships, so to speak. They've got to take into effect the fact that when we're creating these communities, we're creating massive tax base for the county. And often you're trying to work deals there where the county will allow some of that tax-based growth to be focused on infrastructure to help ease the pain of county roads. We have to build, us as developers have to build all these roads. We don't own them, the county owns them. And so there's things like that where we're partnering with the county, makes life a little easier for the ultimate buyer, because if we've got to cover the whole bill, then obviously it's going to have to come from the cost of those homes.
Yeah, and then let me kind of tackle it from the HOA standpoint. So when we say partnering, like you talked about, we do build it all on our nickel. We don't charge it back to the association. We convey it when it's all said and done. There's some things that we do a little bit differently in our communities that others may or may not do. On the lot sale, every lot that sells, we have our builders pay to the Capital Reserve Fund. So we bring that in. We have them paid to the Enhancement Fund. Every time a house resells in our community, that final sales price of the home pays 0.5% back to the Enhancement Fund. So a good example, we're in our 15th year in Bridgeland. Our residents have seen some of the elevated amenities that we've done in our other villages as we continue to build out the community. They wanted to build a very nice fitness center. Well, guess what? We have $3.7 million sitting in that Enhancement Fund. We formed 5 committees of residents, let them tell us what they wanted to see in that community, in that fitness center, and enhancing their facilities. We went and partnered with our engineers and our architects. We designed that with them, for them, and we're using their money to build that. It's currently under construction, so giving back to the community. Now, there's that education component. Our residents think that we're the big evil developer. We're in their pockets every day.
All developers are evil. Heath, you know
That's
this?
right. I mean, Dr.
Well, I like
Evil,
you guys.
Dr.
You'll
Evil
pay me.
sitting right here. But it's that education process. So we have to educate our residents, we have to educate the county, et cetera. So it's a long-term educational process to make sure that they know we're not the bad guys. We're continuing to give back to the community because we have that long-term investment.
What are the important factors to consider when planning out a master plan community? So this one we're going to start off with Elizabeth, and then we're going to go to Uri.
Well, from our standpoint, obviously, we're not buying the land or anything like that. So when we're brought in to work on this, it's usually brought in to set up what is the character of the place and try to help cite where the amenities are going to go and really what are those amenities. We're always looking at it from what is the story that we're trying to tell, and sometimes we base it on the history of the place. Veranda is based off of that. A lot of the history of Richmond. Or is it based off of the land? When we started working on the Woodlands Hills, we looked at the history. There wasn't a lot there. It was a lot of wooded area and not a lot of changes of ownership. So we really started to look within the site and determined that this story was really about the land. It's a little bit different than the other development in the Houston area, and that we did actually have some topography to play with. So we really wanted to express that throughout the character in that first amenity, Founders Park, that went in.
So what we do typically with these new communities, we'll take a 2,000-acre parcel and we'll carve out maybe 200, 250 acres, and for a future, what we call a mixed-use entertainment district, that's where we put the Crystal Lagoon. And we size the parcels within the mixed-use entertainment district for future large-scale commercial projects. So while most of the community is single-family homes, around the lagoon we can do higher density hospitality product, a restaurant row. For example, if you're familiar with Lago Mar in Texas City, we're now embarking on building a Margaritaville branded hotel on the actual lagoon, which will be pretty exciting. We have a restaurant row, which will have about 7 different restaurants on the Crystal Lagoon. And so that future mixed-use entertainment district becomes one of the stories or one of the reasons to buy a home in the community, because every year something is being added. There's future development that's going to be exciting to ride a bike to get on your scooter or your golf cart to ride to, and it provides a great opportunity for us to mature the feasibility of commercial land around the lagoon, and in some cases we also share in joint ventures in those projects. So while we're not vertically developing things ourselves today, we are doing joint ventures on these commercial parcels of land that have the higher value around the lagoon.
How essential is it in the incorporation of walkability in planning for a mixed-use development? You want to take us off there, Heath?
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked about that a little bit, but as we get a little bit more into that urban context, I think absolutely. People are more attracted to areas if it's more of an urban environment or suburban environment on how walkable is that area to points of interest, whether it's shopping, dining, you name it, they want to be in those areas. I'm just recently going through setting up my office in Scottsdale, and one thing that I looked at kind of first and foremost for my office space was what is the walk score? I don't think people have looked at walk scores in the last 10 years, but it's becoming more and more important. As I'm looking to hire new employees, I'm building a staff about 15 people right out of the gate. What's going to make them want to come work for us is going to be, one, where's our office located, and what are the amenities around our office? So I can get top talent in that market and bring them in, and we'll be best in class in the Phoenix market.
Yeah, and Uri, you explained the Greenbelt Trail. So when you guys do your communities, are the amenities centralized? Are they spread out to where it's walkable for the whole community? How do you guys decide that?
We do a little bit of both. So, for example, at our project, the new project in Katy called Sunterra, we're planning a Crystal Lagoon, which is about twice the size of that at Balmoral, and that's within a 20-acre mixed-use entertainment district. Then we also have in the same community, on the north side, we have a lazy river with another clubhouse. So we try to spread out the amenities because we know that some of our projects are too large for people to feel comfortable riding a golf cart or a bike, and so we spread them out. We have different parks. At Balmoral, we have 3 or 4 parks. We have something called the Victory Park, and with different types of amenities. We put in dog parks in our communities, but we definitely try to focus on having one central large-scale amenity.
And I guess now with people working at home, a lot more of the dog parks have become a more viable asset for more communities.
Oh, it's huge. Everybody wants to live in a community with a dog park. It's also a place for people to socialize. You know, if you have a dog, you know, you get to know your neighbors by bringing your dog out, and it's a big part of just the fabric of our communities. Everyone has a dog.
Yeah, when I get reincarnated, I want to come back as a dog. In my wife's house, they have like Tempur-Pedic beds, triple filtered water. They get treated better than me.
You can't lose sight of the fact that, like, whether it's dog parks or crystal lagoons, these amenities, the walkability, you know, from a higher level, what we're trying to do is master plan developers is create a better experience for the customer, so that we can compete against whether we're pulling people out of the city or whatever, right? And so everybody goes through different phases of life, right? You're single, so you want to have walkability to bars, be close to work, whatever. You're married, you might be in an apartment. You have your first kid, you might be in a starter home. You have 4 kids, holy cow, you got a big house. Everybody just left and went to college, you're an empty nester. The idea of a master plan community is in all stages of life, you want something a little bit different. Mm-hmm. And in a really well-planned master plan community, you're creating things that where there's a seat on the bus for everybody. And as you go through life, you may shift seats on the bus, but you're going to stay in that community, and that creates just a tremendous amount of value.
And so in your communities, you guys are planning for the whole bus, right, from start to finish.
Absolutely.
What are some of the challenges you guys have in developing and designing a property that'll incorporate the variety of uses? With Elizabeth, varieties in the park and the open space system, like how do you guys determine what goes in what section of that park? Or Danny?
I don't know. What?
Well,
1, 2, 3, Elizabeth.
You know, we're working with the developer pretty closely, and they've already determined what the product type is that's going around these spaces. So that really is driving what we're putting in those parks. So if we know that this area, like Danny said, this is an area where there's going to be a lot of families, young families, then we're definitely going to have a playground, bigger, more interesting playground, the better. But if you shift that to an area where you're going to get younger professionals, then they want a little bit more fitness. So now we're looking at it from that lens. And then when you shift to the empty nesters, now they want to walk, but they also, pickleball. Everyone's heard about that. That's a big thing right now. And so maybe that's something that we factor in. So it's mostly driven by how the developer is going to develop the land. And then we try to backfill in the things that are going to be wanted within that area.
All right, and Yuri and Heath, if you guys can touch base, and Danny as well, how are the developers integrating different products within the community? Entertainment districts along the lagoon, for instance. Are you guys picking out the retailers? Is there a relationship there? How does that work out? Let's start with Yuri and kind of work our way down.
Start with me? Okay, yeah. So one of the things that's important in our communities, we want to have flexibility because these projects will take years to develop. So for example, when we started developing some of our communities, we didn't know anything about build for rent, and now it's a huge part of our projects. We're estimating about 15% between 10 and 15% of our land will go to build for rent, and it's been fantastic for our projects. We have 2 developers, for example, at Balmoral. One is Balcara. They built single-family homes, which are on 90 by 38-foot lots. They're 38 by 90-foot lots. They hired Lennar to build homes for them. They built them in record time. They rented them all out, and then they sold them at some crazy cap rate. But these people are renting homes, and then they think about buying a house in the community. So it becomes a feeder for the rest of the community. It's actually bringing more home buyers because there's an opportunity to rent, and then eventually you can decide which builder you want to buy a home from. And then we have another developer called WB Wanbridge, and they are building high-end luxury townhomes. They're getting $3,000 a month for these townhomes in suburbia, which it's amazing the rents that they're able to achieve. And they're beautiful townhomes, and we've able to, so that piece of land, for example, we have townhomes for sale and townhomes for rent in the same pod, and we never would have planned for that. So we have to have flexibility within our community. because you don't know what's going to change in the future in the market. Yep.
There's obviously a bunch of different components in a master plan community, right? There's retail, there's multifamily, there's office, there's medical, there's the rental side of things, there's home ownership, and so what we're trying to do in each one of those is figure out what's critical mass. I like to call it the bones. So we're going to start off with a project with the bones of a structure. So, for instance, retail center. You're going to go get a deal done with HEB or Kroger, and there's your anchor, and that's part of a draw for the neighborhoods that are nearby. But from multifamily to whatever, you're focused on what is the market there, what will it give you today versus what is it going to give you tomorrow, and you're going to go develop things that can move the needle today, and prepare land around those areas for future opportunity. So, for instance, our Valley Ranch project. We've got well north of 1 million square feet of retail on the ground, lots of restaurants, everything's thriving. We have an amphitheater that we've known for a decade is going to be a fantastic regional draw for the community. But the market's not quite ready yet because it doesn't have the hotel rooms and some of those other critical pieces. So you got to build lakes on the front end of a neighborhood, so we're building lakes. We got lots of dirt. You know what? 14 acres and a big hill. Plant some grass on it. You've got the bones in place for an amphitheater, so we throw some pretty good parties out there. But all of these things you got to walk before you run, and strategically, each of these asset classes have to be thought about early on, because a lot of times it's difficult to shift directions from mobility infrastructure. You can't just go build an amphitheater in the fourth quarter of a development if you haven't thought about how to get 10,000 cars in and out of your project. So there's a lot to it.
Correct. And you guys have in your communities, annual get-togethers or events.
Well, it's like I said, walk before you run. So 4 years ago, we built the hill. Maybe it's been more than that even. 5 or 6 years ago, we did our first trial run. Let's see whether the amphitheater has legs. And so we did a fourth fest, and we've had some speakers about the size of these two speakers, and a guy on a stage about this big that was marginally talented, and a fireworks show, and some food trucks, and we had 10,000 people show up, and we were like, holy cow! We didn't think about security, we didn't think about managing traffic. It was a 3.5-hour traffic jam to leave after the fireworks. And we thought, we're going to get killed on social media. And it's like, but everybody was so appreciative because this corridor has been so underserved and so forgotten for so many years. They were like, this is the coolest thing ever, And so, anyways, you just keep building on that. Last year we had 4 concerts. This year we'll have 6 or 7.
It's a two-man band now?
Do what?
It's a two-man band?
No, we've had big boys out there. So Pat Green, I can't even think of all the names, but we've had headliners for the shows and paying concerts, and so it's turned into a pretty cool deal.
Nice.
Yeah, I want to add to that also, but we're doing the same thing in that sense. We have a giant festival on the Lagoon, which is open to the public all summer long, 6 days a week. It's called Lagoon Fest Texas, if you haven't heard about it. LagoonFestTexas.com, buy your tickets. Send me a text, I'll get you free tickets. And basically, last summer we had 85,000 paid attendees. This summer we'll have 150,000 paid attendees. And it's a future. In that same location where we have Lagoon Fest Texas, we'll have a beach club for the general public. So one of the things that we do with these large-scale amenities is we have a portion of it for the residents. They have their own exclusive beaches, their own exclusive clubhouse. They feel very exclusive in their own area. But then on the opposite side of the lagoon, which is a quarter mile away, we have a giant public access beach club experience, like a pop-up experience called this Lagoon Fest Texas. And we're developing amenities on the lagoon that are also open to the public. So we have now an amenity called National Sailing Club. It's nationalsailingclub.com, where you can rent a paddleboard, a kayak, take a sailing lesson, get certified, kids sailing camps, and that's open to the public. That's totally open. And so it's really important for us. We feel like this is a great way to invite the general public in to understand what the master plan community is, because then they'll think about buying a home in the community. So it's a great feeder for us. And we have lots of concerts. Like you said, last summer we had 15 concerts, Kevin Fowler, Paul Oakenfold, and We've really gotten into the entertainment business reluctantly, but we were there. And now we're also opening restaurants that we own on the Crystal Lagoon. So we opened one restaurant in Humboldt. It's called the Blue Lagoon Bar and Grill. And it's kind of casual dining, but you can even get a bottle of Camus. And then we have another restaurant that with the same name that we're opening in Lagomar. And then between the two seats, we can seat about 300 people. And they're real significant. We have a real food and beverage operation. So we feel like it's a great way for us to entice the general public to learn about the community, come in and experience what Lagoon life is all about, and then think about buying a home. And it's one of the reasons our builders are getting so much traffic to their models. By the way, every time it starts raining outside and if there's lightning, we have to ask everyone to leave the park. So we text everybody in the park, hey, why don't you leave for 30 minutes, go enjoy the builders' models, come and see, think about buying a home. So they get lots of traffic, and part of it is due to this public access. And about 15% of our home buyers say that they came to buy a home, they learned about it because they came to one of these events. So we survey them. That's pretty interesting because that way we don't get too much rejection from the homeowners about having public access in some part of the community, because they realize it's bringing in more buyers. And the more buyers come in, the faster the community develops, the faster the values of their homes go up. Balmoral, that project without a Crystal Lagoon was performed to be sold over 8 years. We sold all of the lots in 2.5 years, and which is amazing. And part of it is because of this, what we call the Crystal Lagoon effect, the Lagoon effect.
Yeah, so just kind of look back at our conversation. Kind of one thing what Danny didn't tell you was he was that marginal entertainment on the day one of their first deal. Also, flexibility is paramount in everything we do in large-scale master plan communities. You got to plan for that. If you look at the Woodlands, we set aside right-of-ways. We have the flyover that comes from I-45. All that was early in the stages of planning by people that were much smarter than I. And then last but not least, we're all developers. We're very competitive. When we talk about entertainment and bringing people into our community, I'll just say the Cynthia Woods Mitchell Pavilion, mic drop.
See ya. Well, I appreciate the mic drop because we're running out of time.
There you go.
So no, with that said, I really appreciate you guys coming this morning. Thank you for all the information. Our panel is running out, so I'm going to pass it over to Kim.